Hello, in this video I'll show you this limitation group of properties. So first one is minimum particles, and minimum particles means that if some fragment has to create less particles than this value, then it will not create any particle system. In this case, you can be sure that you will not create whole game object with particle system just because of some small amount of particles. So by default it's 3, and here I have different rocks, and for this one I set it to 22, and for first one I set it to 3. So all the properties exactly the same. Let's say we set 30 here and 30 here. So all properties exactly the same except this minimum particles property. So when I create this demolition, I can select here some fragment. So here you can see all the fragments get particle system because all they have every host here have particles more than 3, and for the right one, as you can see here, a couple 3 objects which don't have particles because they were too small. They didn't get enough particles because in this case it was 22, so they had to create less than this value particles, so they didn't create it at all, didn't create them at all. And this is how minimum particles property works. So next example shows you how works maximum particles, and it works in different way. It just limits amount of particles inside the particle system. So again, here I have my max particle set to 10, and for this one I set it to 30, and also I set pretty high amount for my emission here. As you can see, I set here 500 for both of the subjects, so they have to create a lot of particles right now. But since I have different max particle property, you can see in this example on the left I have less particle than on the right, and this is basically just a property which was set here inside particle system. Here's my max particles. So this is how this max particle property works. Next property is percentage, and percentage works for demolished object. So again, here I have 3 different references. First one set again all properties exactly the same except that here I set percentage to 10, and in this case I set percentage to 50%, and for last one it's 100. Also I set here in my rigid component that I want to demolish this object to 11 fragments, so they'll be I already pre-cached these fragments. You can see there are 10 meshes pre-cached, so every rock will create 10 fragments. And when I demolish these objects, here you can see that in this case I have only one object has particle system, because for this rock it was set to 10%, and basically 10% from 10 objects is just one object. And in this example I have 4 objects with particle system, so roughly about 50% of the objects. And for the last example here, as you can see, since it was set to 100%, all fragments generate some particles. So this is how percentage property works in case you don't want every fragment you create so it will generate debris. You can just limit the amount of particle system by this percentage property. This one, here it is, percentage. Another way to use percentage is if you use it with mesh root component. So here again I have the same setup: 10%, 50%, and 100%. But this time I'm using mesh root for my rigid component. So again, this is just empty root with a bunch of objects. They don't have any kind of components, no debris, no rigid. And since I set here mesh root, it will copy this rigid component and this debris component to every fragment in a wake. And this is how you can use percentage property in other ways. So it also mesh root, when it copies this debris component to other fragments, it also takes into account this percentage. So when I will start play mode, and it will copy all the fragments, Now I can select every fragment. You can see now it has mesh collider, rigid component, rigid body, also RayFire debris, and every fragment here will have this debris component because its mesh root here, it has percentage set to 100%, and in this example it was set to 50%. So I will start selecting objects here, and you can see, okay, this one has debris, and okay, this one doesn't have debris, and so on. So approximately 50% of all these fragments will have debris components. So when you will activate them or demolish, they will, not all of them will generate debris, but only 50% of them. And here example is 10%. Obviously only 10% of this 100 object will have debris component. Okay, here's one, here's one, here's one, and so on. So this is how you can use percentage with mesh root component. And the last example is size threshold. So here's my example here. Again, I have 3 rocks, and this allows you to create debris only for object which size is bigger than this value. It measures in units. So in this case, I'm demolishing my rocks using, and I also manually pre-cached fragments. So let's start play mode. Okay, so now here you can see that there's one object here which didn't have any particle system, and this is the smallest object from all fragments. In this rigid component info section, you can see its size is 0.94, and since I have set size threshold to 1, it didn't get any particle system. So in this way you can limit amount of particle system by fragment size, in case you don't want to generate particle system for every small fragment and you want them to be created only by biggest fragments. Then you can use a size threshold. And in this example here, I have 3 objects. As you can see, they didn't get any particle system, and I used value 1.3. And if you will select the subject, you can see their size is 1.24. This is the previous fragment, and this one 1.29. This is why it didn't get debris as well. And in the last example, I set it to 1.8 units. So I can see only the biggest fragment here get this particle system because its size is 1.82, and this is the biggest fragment, and this is why only this fragment generate a particle system. So this was limitation group of properties. They allow you to limit particle generation and particle system generation. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.